Dr. Zara Chen walked into the large meeting room at Galactic Survival Academy. The room was filled with professors from different worlds across the galaxy. She took her seat near the back, her small human frame barely visible among the much larger alien faculty members. Director Veltar stood at the front of the room. His green scales caught the light as he moved. The tall Saurian had run the academy for over 30 years. Everyone respected him, but today his voice carried a heavy weight. "Faculty members," Veltar began, his voice echoing through the room. "I must share some difficult news with you all today." The room grew quiet. Even the clicking sounds from the insect-like Chithari professors stopped. Zara leaned forward in her chair. Veltar pressed a button and a large screen appeared behind him. Numbers and charts filled the display. Red dominated the colors. "Lots of red. These are our survival statistics for the past 10 years, he said. "The numbers are not good." Zara studied the charts. Her heart sank as she read the data. The survival rates for Class X planets, what the Academy called Deathworlds, were terrible. Only 11% of trained specialists survived their first year on these dangerous planets. 89%. Veltar continued, his voice growing quieter. 89% of all species fail to establish lasting colonies on Deathworlds. Most die within the first 6 months. A blue-skinned Aquarian professor raised her webbed hand. "Director, what about the training improvements we made last year?" "The new training helped with Class A and Class B planets," Veltar replied. "But Deathworlds remain as deadly as ever." "Perhaps more so." Zara looked around the room. She saw fear in many eyes. The ethereals, beings of pure energy, seemed to flicker more weakly. The rocky granite people sat completely still, which meant they were worried. "I have received messages from 5 major species councils this week," Veltar announced. "The Centauri Union, the Vegan Republic, the Spiral Alliance, the Core Worlds Federation, and the Outer Rim Collective. They are all pulling their students from our Deathworld program." Shocked whispers filled the room. This was bad news. Very bad news. "They say the cost is too high," Veltar continued. "Too many young people dying. Too many families destroyed. They want their brightest minds working on safer worlds." Dr. Koresh, a massive bear-like Ursoid, stood up. His fur was gray with age and wisdom. "Director, what does this mean for the Academy?" "It means we may need to close the Deathworld Specialization Program," Veltar said. "We cannot run a program with only a few species participating. The costs are too high and the results are too poor." Zara felt her stomach drop. The Deathworld program was her life's work. She had spent 15 years developing new survival techniques. Her research had saved hundreds of lives. "Perhaps," Veltar said, looking directly at the gathered faculty, "it is time we accept a hard truth. Some environments are simply beyond what biological life can handle. Some planets are meant to remain empty." The room erupted in discussion. Professors argued with each other in a dozen different languages. Some agreed with Veltar. Others protested loudly. Zara stood up. Being human, she was shorter than most others in the room. Her voice was quiet compared to the roars and clicks and whistles of her colleagues, but something in her tone made everyone stop talking. "Director," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the now silent room. "I have a question." Veltar nodded toward her. "Yes, Dr. Chen." Zara took a deep breath. She had noticed something in the data that bothered her, something that did not make sense with what Veltar was saying. "You say no species can endure Deathworlds," she said slowly. "But I looked at the survival statistics before this meeting. I saw something interesting." She paused, looking around the room. Every alien face was turned toward her. "Earth has been sending graduates to Deathworld assignments for 12 years now," she continued. "In that time, we have sent over 300 specialists to Class X planets." Veltar's scales shifted color slightly. This usually meant a Saurian was uncomfortable. "Dr. Chen," he said carefully, "what is your question?" Zara looked directly at him. Her voice was steady and clear. "If no species can endure Deathworlds, then why does Earth keep sending graduates to these planets? And why do they keep succeeding?" The silence that followed was complete. Not even the hum of the air recycling system could be heard. Dr. Koresh was the first to speak. "What do you mean, succeeding?" Zara walked to the front of the room. She touched the display controls and brought up a new set of data. These numbers were very different from what Veltar had shown. "Human survival rate on Class X planets is 73%, she said. "Our graduates do not just survive their first year. They build permanent settlements. They established trade routes. They turned Deathworlds into thriving colonies. The room exploded into noise again, but this time it was not argument. It was confusion and disbelief. "That is impossible," said Dr. Zenth, a tall, thin Graylian. "Our best computer models show that Deathworld survival should be less than 5% for any carbon-based life form." "Yet here are the numbers," Zara said, pointing at the screen. "Humans are not just surviving on Deathworlds. We are making them home." Veltar studied the data carefully. His scales had turned a pale yellow, which meant deep thought. "Dr. Chen," he said finally, "are you suggesting that humans are somehow different from other species? That you have evolved special abilities we do not possess?" Zara shook her head. "I do not know what makes the difference, Director. I only know that the numbers do not lie. While other species avoid Deathworlds, humans volunteer for assignments there. While other graduates die or flee, humans stay and build communities. But how?" asked Dr. Thessarian, whose people were known for their logical minds. "What could humans possibly do that we cannot?" Zara looked around the room at all the confused and worried faces. She realized that she did not have an answer, but she knew where to find one. "I think," she said slowly, "we need to study how humans are trained for Deathworld assignments. We need to understand what Earth teaches its people that other worlds do not." Veltar was quiet for a long moment. Finally he spoke. "Dr. Chen, you are proposing that we study human training methods?" "I am proposing that before we close the Deathworld program," Zara said, "we figure out why one species succeeds where all others fail. Maybe the problem is not that Deathworlds cannot be survived. Maybe the problem is that we do not know how to survive them." The room fell silent again, but this time the silence felt different. It felt like possibility. Veltar looked at the data on the screen one more time. Then he looked at Zara. "Dr. Chen," he said, "prepare a research proposal. The Academy will fund a full investigation into human Deathworld training methods. We will learn your secrets." Zara nodded, but inside she wondered if humans even knew they had secrets to share. After all, everything they did seemed perfectly normal to them. 3 weeks after the faculty meeting, Zara sat in her research lab surrounded by stacks of files. She had requested every record the Academy had about human students and graduates. The data told an amazing story, but also a confusing one. Her assistant, a young Aquarian named Blue Wave, swam nervously in her portable water tank. "Dr. Chen, these numbers make no sense to me. How can humans be so successful on worlds that kill everyone else?" Zara picked up another file. This one belonged to Marcus Rodriguez, a human who had graduated 5 years ago. He was now leading a mining colony on Infernus 7, a planet where the temperature changed from freezing to boiling every 12 hours. "Look at this," Zara said, reading from Marcus's file. "His application says he grew up in something called the Caribbean during what humans call hurricane season. He writes here that he learned to swim in storms and sleep through earthquakes." Blue Wave's tentacles curled in confusion. "Sleep through earthquakes? That sounds like madness. On my world, even small ground tremors send everyone to emergency shelters." Zara opened another file. Sarah Kim, currently running a research station on Nightfall Prime, where acid rain fell every day and the atmosphere could dissolve most metals. "Sarah's background is even stranger," Zara said. "She grew up in the Australian outback. Look at these temperature records from her hometown. It regularly reached 50 degrees Celsius. That is hot enough to kill most species. How did she survive?" Blue Wave asked. According to her file, that was normal summer weather. She played outside in it. Her application mentions that she enjoyed something called bushwalking in those conditions. Zara kept reading. File after file showed the same pattern. Human students came from environments that would be classified as dangerous or deadly by galactic standards. Yet they described these places as home. A soft knock came at the lab door. Zara looked up to see Jin Watanabe, one of the current human students in the Deathworld program. "Dr. Chen, you wanted to interview me about my training?" "Yes, please come in," Zara said. "Jin, I am trying to understand how humans prepare for Deathworld assignments. Can you tell me about your background?" Jin sat down and smiled. He was young, maybe 25 Earth years. His skin was dark from sun exposure and his hands showed calluses from hard work. "I grew up in the Himalayas," he said. "My family runs a climbing guide service near Mount Everest." Zara checked her notes. Mount Everest was over 8,000 meters high. The air there contained barely enough oxygen to support life. "You lived at that altitude?" she asked. "Oh no," Jen laughed. "We lived lower down. I only went to the high camps during climbing season, though I did spend a winter at base camp when I was 16. That was fun. Zara stared at him. According to her research, humans could not survive long at that altitude without special equipment, yet Jin talked about it like a camping trip. Jin, what do you consider dangerous? She asked. He thought for a moment. Well, avalanche zones are pretty scary. And crevasse fields in bad weather. Oh, and getting caught above the death zone in a storm. That happened to me once. Had to dig a snow cave and wait it out for 3 days. Blue Wave made a strangled sound in her tank. You survived 3 days in a death zone? It was not that bad, Jin said. I had a sleeping bag and some energy bars. The hard part was staying awake. You have to wake up every hour to check that you are still breathing properly. Zara realized that what Jin described as not that bad would kill any other species within hours. The thin air, freezing temperatures, and isolation should have been impossible to survive. Jin, how does Earth train people for Deathworld work? She asked. Train? Jin looked confused. I do not think we have special training. We just learn to deal with whatever nature throws at us, but surely there are classes. Survival courses? Emergency procedures? Jin shrugged. In school, we learned basic first aid and how to read weather patterns. During summer break, my friends and I would go on hiking trips. Sometimes we got lost or caught in storms, but we figured it out. Zara felt her understanding of human education shifting. You let children get lost in dangerous wilderness? Not on purpose, Jin said quickly. But it happens sometimes. That is how you learn to stay calm and think clearly when things go wrong. After Jin left, Zara sat quietly for a long time. She was starting to understand something incredible and terrifying. Blue Wave, she said finally. I think I know why humans succeed on Deathworlds. Why? Because they grow up on one. Blue Wave's tentacles went completely still. What do you mean? Zara pulled up Earth's planetary classification on her computer. According to the Academy's standards, Earth rated as Class C, barely suitable for most galactic species, but not dangerous enough to be called a death world. But as she looked more carefully at the data, she realized the classification was wrong. Earth had massive storms that could destroy entire cities, earthquakes that could split the ground open, volcanoes that could change the climate, wild animals that could kill with tooth and claw, deserts where the heat could cook flesh, mountains where the air was too thin to breathe, oceans that could swallow ships whole. Blue Wave, look at this weather data from Earth, she said. Hurricanes with winds over 200 kilometers per hour, tornadoes that can lift buildings, blizzards that bury entire towns. That sounds like a Class X rating to me, Blue Wave said quietly. But humans do not just survive these things, Zara continued. They build cities in earthquake zones. They farm in areas that flood regularly. They live on islands where volcanoes are active. They think this is normal. Zara stood up and began pacing around the lab. The pieces were coming together in her mind. Every other species in the galaxy evolved on stable worlds, she said. Worlds with predictable weather, manageable dangers, environments that change slowly over time. Yes, that is normal evolution, Blue Wave agreed. But Earth is not stable. It is violent and unpredictable and constantly trying to kill everything that lives on it. So humans did not evolve to avoid danger. They evolved to dance with it. Zara sat back down and looked at all the files spread across her desk. Hundreds of human graduates who had succeeded where others failed. Each one trained not by classrooms and simulations, but by growing up on a world that demanded adaptation or death. We have been thinking about this wrong, she said. We assumed that Deathworld training meant learning special skills or using better technology. But for humans, Deathworld training means learning to think like someone who belongs there. Dr. Chen, Blue Wave said slowly, are you saying that Earth is actually a Deathworld? Zara looked at the planetary data again. Then she looked at the survival statistics. The answer was clear. Yes, she said. Earth is a death world. Humans just do not know it because they have never lived anywhere else. The implications hit her like a wave. If Earth was really a death world, then every human who left it was already trained for the most dangerous assignments in the galaxy. They did not need to learn how to survive impossible conditions. They already knew how. The question now was whether other species could learn to think like humans. Could aliens trained on safe, stable worlds learn to embrace chaos instead of fearing it? Zara smiled as she reached for her communication device. It was time to request funding for a field trip to Earth. She had a feeling that Director Veltar and the other faculty members were about to get the education of their lives. Director Veltar stood at the window of his office looking out at the stars. Behind him, Zara waited nervously for his response to her research proposal. She had just spent 2 hours explaining her theory that Earth was actually a death world. "Dr. Chen," he said finally, not turning around, "what you are suggesting is impossible." "The data supports it," Zara replied. "Earth's environmental conditions match Class X classification in multiple categories." Veltar turned to face her. His scales had shifted to deep purple, indicating serious concern. "If Earth is truly a death world, then humans have been living on a planet that should have killed them long ago. How is their species not extinct?" "Because they adapted," Zara said. "Not just physically, but mentally. They learned to see danger as normal, crisis as opportunity, and deadly environments as home." "Prove it," Veltar said. 1 month later, Zara stood on the landing platform at Earth's Survival Training Institute in Colorado. Beside her were 5 other Academy faculty members who had volunteered for what many considered a foolish mission. Dr. Karash, the massive Ursoid, wore a full environmental suit despite the mild Earth weather. "The gravity here is higher than my homeworld," he complained. "And this thin atmosphere makes me dizzy." Dr. Thessarian, the logical Vulcanoid, checked his scanner for the 3rd time. "The background radiation levels are concerning, and I detect trace amounts of over 40 different toxins in the air." "That is just pollen and car exhaust," Zara explained. "Humans breathe it every day." Blue Wave rolled her portable tank closer to the group. "Dr. Chen, are you certain this place is safe?" "My sensors show massive electromagnetic interference from something called cell phone towers." "It is perfectly safe," Zara assured them, though she was beginning to understand why her colleagues were nervous. She had lived on Earth for most of her life, but seeing it through alien eyes made her realize how dangerous it really was. Their human guide approached the group. Lisa Parker was a cheerful woman in her 30s, who worked as an instructor at the institute. She wore simple hiking clothes and carried nothing but a small backpack. "Welcome to Earth," she said brightly. "Ready for your orientation tour?" Dr. Zenth, the tall Graylian, pointed his scanner at her. "Ms. Parker, my readings show that you are not wearing any protective equipment. Are you not concerned about the environmental hazards?" Lisa looked confused. "Environmental hazards? It is a beautiful day. Clear skies, light breeze, perfect temperature for hiking." Zara checked her own instruments. The temperature was 18 degrees Celsius. The alien faculty members were reading it as dangerously unstable because it had changed 3 degrees since they landed. "Ms. Parker," Dr. Korash said, "where is your emergency shelter? Your survival gear? Your backup life support? For a nature walk?" Lisa laughed. "We are just going to the visitor center. It is maybe 2 kilometers through the forest." The alien professors exchanged worried looks. Dr. Thessarian spoke up. "The forest contains multiple life forms that our scans classify as predators. There are also unstable geological formations and unpredictable weather patterns." "You mean the squirrels and rabbits?" Lisa asked. "And yeah, it might rain later. We should probably head out now if we want to stay dry." As they walked along the trail, Zara watched her colleagues struggle with things that Lisa treated as completely normal. When a bird sang loudly from a nearby tree, Dr. Zenth dove for cover behind a rock. "Territorial display from aerial predator," he shouted. "That is just a robin," Lisa said. "They are saying hello." When the path crossed a small stream, Dr. Korash refused to continue without testing the water for toxins. Lisa simply stepped across on the rocks, not understanding why anyone would be concerned about a creek that was barely knee-deep. "Ms. Parker," Blue Wave asked from her tank, "how do you know that stream is safe?" "I grew up playing in creeks like this," Lisa replied. "My mom used to bring my sister and me here for picnics when we were kids." "You brought children to this location?" Dr. Thessarian asked in shock. "Sure. Kids love exploring in nature. It is good for them." Halfway to the visitor center, it began to rain. The alien professors immediately activated their emergency protocols. Weather shields deployed, protective barriers engaged, and emergency beacons started transmitting distress signals. Lisa pulled a light jacket from her backpack and kept walking. "Come on, it is just a little shower. We will be there in 20 minutes. "Ms. Parker," Dr. Karash called out. "The atmospheric precipitation contains unknown chemical compounds. You need protection." "It is just rainwater," Lisa called back. "It is actually pretty refreshing." When they finally reached the visitor center, the alien professors were exhausted and stressed. Lisa looked perfectly comfortable, even though she was slightly damp from the rain. "That was a nice walk," she said. "Tomorrow we can take you to see some real outdoor activities." "Real outdoor activities?" Zara asked, though she was beginning to dread the answer. "Oh yes," Lisa said excitedly. "We have rock climbing, whitewater rafting, wilderness camping, and mountain hiking. There is also a survival course where people learn to live in the wilderness with minimal equipment." Dr. Xenth made a choking sound. "People do these things voluntarily?" "For fun," Lisa confirmed. "We also have adventure tourism. People pay money to experience dangerous environments. Very popular." That evening, the research team gathered in their hotel room to discuss what they had learned. The aliens were all in various states of shock. "Dr. Chen," Dr. Korash said, "today's experience was terrifying, and Ms. Parker called it a casual nature walk. The environmental conditions we faced would require emergency evacuation procedures on any civilized world," Dr. Thessarian added. "Yet human children play in such places regularly." Zara nodded. "Now you understand what I have been trying to tell you. What humans consider normal recreation, we consider survival training. But how do they function in such constant danger?" Blue Wave asked. "They do not see it as danger," Zara explained. "They see it as life. Humans expect their environment to be unpredictable and challenging. They plan for things to go wrong. They adapt quickly when conditions change." Dr. Xenth was studying his readings from the day. "Dr. Chen, according to my calculations, the stress levels that human children experience during normal play activities are higher than what we put our adult survival specialists through in training." "Exactly," Zara said. "Earth is not just teaching humans to survive Deathworlds. Earth is a death world. Every human who grows up here is already trained for the most dangerous assignments in the galaxy." Director Veltar, who had been quiet all evening, finally spoke. "Dr. Chen, what you are showing us changes everything we thought we knew about survival training." "How so?" "We have been trying to eliminate risk from our training programs," he said. "We create controlled environments where students can learn safely. But humans learn by accepting risk as normal." "That is correct," Zara said. "Human children learn to assess danger quickly, make decisions with incomplete information, and adapt to changing conditions. Not because they are taught these skills in classrooms, but because they need them to live normal lives." Dr. Korash leaned forward. "Are you saying that other species could learn to think like humans?" "I think," Zara said carefully, "that we need to completely rethink how we approach Deathworld training. Instead of trying to make dangerous environments safe, we need to learn how to be comfortable with danger." "But how?" Dr. Thessarian asked. "Our species evolved on stable worlds. We cannot change millions of years of evolution." Zara smiled. "We cannot change evolution, but we can change education. Tomorrow, Ms. Parker is going to show us how human children learn to embrace uncertainty. I think you are all going to be very surprised." Outside their hotel window, a thunderstorm was beginning. Lightning flashed across the sky and thunder rolled over the mountains. The alien professors automatically activated their protective equipment. In the distance, Zara could see human children playing in their yards, laughing as they ran through the rain. They were not afraid of the storm. They were dancing with it. For the first time, Zara truly understood what made humans special. They did not just survive Deathworlds, they turned them into playgrounds. 6 months after returning from Earth, Zara stood in the Academy's mission briefing room. In front of her were 12 volunteers, 6 humans and 6 aliens, preparing for the most dangerous test in Academy history. "Infernus Prime," she announced, activating the holographic display. The planet that appeared looked like something from a nightmare. Newly discovered Class X world. Acid rain cycles every 6 hours. Temperature swings from -80 to +150 Celsius daily. Atmospheric pressure changes without warning. Flora and fauna adapted for extreme aggression. Dr. Korash, who had volunteered despite his terror of Earth's mild forests, stared at the display. "Dr. Chen, this world makes Earth look safe." "That is exactly why we chose it," Zara replied. "If human training methods work here, they will work anywhere." The mission was simple in concept, nearly impossible in execution. 2 teams would establish separate base camps on Infernus Prime. One team would use traditional Academy survival protocols. The other would use techniques learned from human instructors during their expanded training program. Team Alpha, the traditional team, consisted of 3 aliens using standard equipment. Dr. Thessarian led the group. Supported by two of the Academy's best survival specialists, they had environmental suits, advanced shelters, and enough supplies for 6 months. Team Beta was led by Marcus Rodriguez, the human graduate who had been running a successful mining colony on Infernus 7. His team included Sarah Kim, Jin Watanabe, and 3 alien volunteers who had completed the new human-style training program. Team Beta, Zara announced, you will establish your base camp with minimal equipment, using adaptation strategies rather than environmental protection. Dr. Korash looked at Team Beta's supply list and made a worried, rumbling sound. Dr. Chen, they have no environmental suits, no atmospheric processors. Their shelter materials would not protect against a mild rainstorm on my homeworld. That is the point, Marcus said calmly. Heavy equipment makes you dependent. When it fails, you die. We prefer to work with the environment instead of against it. The transport ship left them on Infernus Prime during what passed for a calm period. Even so, the acid rain was light enough to strip paint, and the temperature was a comfortable -40 degrees. Team Alpha immediately began establishing their base according to Academy protocols. They set up atmospheric shields, deployed environmental controls, and activated their protective perimeter. Within 4 hours, they had created a small bubble of safety in the hostile world. Team Beta scattered as soon as they landed. Instead of staying together, they split into pairs to explore the immediate area. They moved quickly and lightly, carrying only basic tools and emergency supplies. Zara watched both teams through remote monitors from the safety of the orbiting research vessel. The difference in approach was striking from the very beginning. When the acid rain intensified, Team Alpha retreated to their shelter and waited for conditions to improve. Their equipment protected them perfectly, but they could not work or explore until the storm passed. Team Beta found natural rock formations that provided partial protection from the rain. Instead of waiting, they used the storm as an opportunity to collect water samples and study the local geology. Sarah Kim actually seemed excited about the acid rain, calling it excellent for understanding the planetary chemistry. How are they not dying? Dr. Zenth asked from the observation deck. Watch their movement patterns, Zara replied. They are not fighting the environment. They are reading it and adapting to it. On the second day, both teams faced their first major crisis. A seismic event shifted the atmospheric pressure dramatically, and the temperature began dropping toward the -80 extreme. Team Alpha's response was immediate and by the book. They sealed their shelter, activated emergency heating, and sent a distress signal requesting evacuation clearance. Team Beta's response was completely different. Jin and Marcus quickly identified a thermal vent system that would provide natural heating. Instead of fighting the temperature drop, they moved their entire camp to take advantage of the planet's own heat sources. That is insane. Dr. Thessarian's voice came through the communication system. Those thermal vents are releasing toxic gases. The humans should be dead within hours, but they were not dead. Sarah Kim had identified which gases were actually dangerous and which just smelled bad. The team positioned themselves to take advantage of the heat, while avoiding the truly harmful emissions. By day 4, the differences between the teams were becoming obvious. Team Alpha was safe but completely dependent on their equipment. They had learned nothing about the planet except how to hide from it. Team Beta was thriving. They had mapped local weather patterns, identified edible local plants, and discovered a cave system that provided excellent natural shelter. More importantly, they seemed comfortable and confident. Marcus, Zara called through the communicator. How are your alien team members adapting? Slow start, Marcus replied, but they are learning. Felka figured out how to read the atmospheric pressure changes by watching the local wildlife behavior. Threshner found fruits that are safe to eat. Klix learned to predict thermal vent activity by listening to underground sounds. Zara was amazed. 3 alien volunteers, after only 6 months of human-style training, were learning to read an alien environment like natives. The real test came on day 7. A massive storm system approach that would push every environmental factor to deadly extremes. The acid rain would be strong enough to dissolve metal. The temperature would drop to -70. The atmospheric pressure would become unstable enough to burst unprotected lungs. Team Alpha prepared by activating maximum protection protocols. Their shelter could withstand the storm, but they would be trapped inside for at least 3 days. Team Beta did something that made everyone on the observation ship hold their breath. They decided to move deeper into the cave system they had discovered. They are going underground during an atmospheric storm? Dr. Zenth asked in horror. That is suicide. The pressure changes will be even worse in enclosed spaces. But Marcus had noticed something about the caves that traditional academy training would never have taught him to look for. The cave system was connected to the thermal vents, which meant the underground pressure would actually stabilize during atmospheric storms. While Team Alpha hunkered down in their shelter, Team Beta used the storm as an opportunity to explore the extensive underground cave network. They discovered underground water sources, stable thermal areas, and evidence of mineral deposits that could support long-term colonization. When the storm passed, Team Alpha emerged to find that several of their systems had been damaged by the extreme conditions. They were still safe, but their ability to remain on the planet long-term was compromised. Team Beta emerged with detailed maps of underground resources and a plan for establishing a permanent settlement. They had not just survived the storm. They had used it to make themselves more secure. Dr. Chen, Director Veltar said from the observation deck, "What we are seeing should not be possible." "Which part?" Zara asked. "All of it. Humans are not just surviving impossible conditions. They are making those conditions work for them. And they are teaching other species to do the same." On day 10, both teams were scheduled to return to the ship. Team Alpha was ready to leave immediately. They had gathered enough data to write reports, but they had not learned to live on Infernus Prime. Team Beta requested permission to stay longer. They had identified the location for a permanent base and wanted to begin construction. "Marcus," Zara called down to the planet, "are you saying you want to colonize Infernus Prime?" "Dr. Chen," Marcus replied, "this world has everything needed for a successful colony. Geothermal energy, mineral resources, underground water, and natural shelter systems. It would be a shame to waste such a good opportunity." Zara looked around the observation deck at her colleagues. Dr. Karash was shaking his massive head in disbelief. Dr. Thessarian was furiously taking notes, trying to understand the logical basis for what seemed like madness. "Marcus," she said finally, "what makes you think other species could live successfully on Infernus Prime?" "Because they already are," he replied. "Velka, Threshinor, and Clix are not just surviving here. They are starting to think like the planet instead of against it. Give them another month, and they will be teaching this stuff to Academy students." Director Veltar was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he activated the communicator. "Team Beta," he said, "permission granted to establish permanent research station. Academy support resources will be provided as needed." As the research ship prepared to leave a skeleton crew behind to support the new colony, Zara realized that they had proven something far more important than human superiority on Deathworlds. They had proven that the secret was not species-specific. Any species could learn to think like humans. Any species could learn to dance with chaos instead of fearing it. The key was not better equipment or superior evolution. The key was changing how they thought about impossible places. Instead of asking whether they could survive somewhere, they needed to ask how they could make it home. 2 years later, Zara stood at the podium in the Academy's main auditorium. The room was packed with faculty, students, and representatives from dozens of worlds across the galaxy. Today was graduation day for the first class trained under the new survival paradigm. "When we began this program," she said, looking out at the mixed crowd of humans and aliens, "survival training meant learning to avoid danger. Today, our graduates have learned something different. They have learned to dance with uncertainty." In the front row sat the original research team from Infernus Prime. Dr. Karash now taught a course called Adaptive Problem Solving Under Pressure. Dr. Thessarian had written 3 papers on logical decision-making with incomplete information. Even Dr. Zenth, who had once hidden from a singing bird, now led wilderness survival exercises. The old academy taught students to calculate risk and minimize exposure, Zara continued. The new academy teaches students that perfect safety is impossible, and perfect information is a luxury. Instead, we learn to make good decisions quickly and adapt when those decisions prove wrong. Velka, one of the alien volunteers from the Infernus Prime mission, stood up when her name was called. She walked across the stage to receive her Deathworld Specialist certification. 2 years ago, she could barely function in Earth's mild climate. Now she was scheduled to lead a terraforming mission to a world where gravity fluctuated randomly. "The secret," Zara said, was never about being human. It was about thinking like someone who belongs wherever they choose to go. After the ceremony, the graduates gathered in the Academy's recreation area. The scene would have been impossible just a few years before. Humans and aliens worked together on projects that previous generations would have considered suicide missions. Sarah Kim, now a faculty member, was discussing her latest research with a group of students. The fungal networks on Nightmare Colony actually regulate the planet's atmospheric toxicity, she explained to a mixed group of species. If we work with the ecosystem instead of against it, we can establish permanent settlements without environmental domes. Marcus Rodriguez had become the Academy's director of field operations. He was reviewing mission reports with graduates who had spent the last 6 months establishing colonies on worlds that were previously considered uninhabitable. Glacier 7 is producing its first food harvest, he announced. Storm Valley has established trade relations with 3 neighboring systems, and the team on Quake World has figured out how to use seismic activity to power their entire settlement. Jin Watanabe approached Zara with a young Chithari student beside him. The insect-like alien's translator crackled as it spoke. Dr. Chen, Kliktar wants to thank you for changing how we think about dangerous places. Zara looked at the young Chithari. What do you mean? My species evolved in underground hives with perfect climate control, Kliktar explained. We thought surface worlds were impossibly dangerous. But the human instructors taught us that adaptation is faster than perfection. Where are you assigned after graduation? Zara asked. Molten Ridge, Kliktar replied proudly. A world where lava flows change the landscape daily. My species' natural tunnel-building abilities make us perfect for underground cities there. We just needed to learn not to fear the surface chaos. Across the room, Blue Wave was swimming excitedly in her tank, surrounded by a group of Academy instructors. She had become the lead researcher on aquatic Deathworld adaptation. The breakthrough, she was explaining, came when we stopped trying to make water safe and started learning to read what dangerous water was telling us. Now our teams can establish underwater colonies even in seas with predatory ecosystems. Director Veltar approached Zara with a datapad in his hands. His scales showed the bright green of satisfaction and pride. Dr. Chen, the final statistics are in for this graduation class. Zara took the pad and read the numbers. Her eyes widened in amazement. 97% survival rate for Class X assignments, she read aloud. Successful colony establishment rate of 89%. Average colony population growth of 40% in the first year. Those numbers are better than most species achieve on Class A worlds, Veltar noted. And this class included students from 17 different species, many of whom had never left their homeworlds before joining the Academy. Zara looked around the room at the celebrating graduates. Humans and aliens were planning joint missions to worlds that had been written off as uninhabitable. They were not just surviving Deathworlds anymore. They were turning them into thriving communities. Director, she said, I think we need to stop calling them Deathworlds. What should we call them? Opportunity worlds, Zara replied. Worlds where only the adaptable can thrive, but where those who adapt can build something amazing. A young human graduate approached them with an excited expression. Dr. Chen, my team has been assigned to explore the Maelstrom sector. The worlds there are supposed to be the most dangerous in the galaxy. Are you nervous? Zara asked. The young man grinned. Are you kidding? Worlds that dangerous must have resources and opportunities that safer places could never offer. We can't wait to see what we can build there. As the evening continued, Zara received reports from colonies across the galaxy. The graduates of the new program were not just surviving in impossible places. They were creating trade networks, developing new technologies, and establishing communities that attracted volunteers from hundreds of species. Most importantly, they were teaching their children to see challenge as opportunity and uncertainty as adventure. Director Veltar found Zara on the observation deck as the celebration continued below them. Through the transparent aluminum windows, they could see stars representing thousands of worlds where Academy graduates were building new lives. Dr. Chen, he said, when you first asked why Earth kept sending graduates to Deathworlds, did you imagine it would lead to this? Zara smiled as she watched a group of young aliens and humans planning their next mission together. Honestly, I just wanted to understand why humans seem so comfortable in places that terrified everyone else. And now Now I understand that the question was wrong from the beginning, she said. The question was never why humans could endure Deathworlds. The question was why everyone else was so afraid of them. Below them, the graduates were sharing stories and planning futures on worlds that previous generations would have considered uninhabitable. They talked about challenge the way other people talked about vacation destinations. A message came through on Zara's communication device. It was from Marcus, now establishing his third colony on a world where the atmosphere rained liquid metal. Dr. Chen, his voice came through clearly despite being transmitted across half the galaxy. You need to see what we built here. This world is incredible. The liquid metal rain has properties we never expected. We are creating alloys that did not exist anywhere else in the galaxy. 3 different species have requested permission to relocate their entire populations here. Any problems? Zara asked. Just one, Marcus replied. We have a waiting list of over 10,000 applicants who want to move here. We cannot build housing fast enough. Zara laughed as she ended the communication. She remembered when Marcus first graduated, nervous about his assignment to a world where temperature swings would kill most species. Now he was managing a colony that other species considered a desirable place to live. Director, she said to Veltar, I think we need to expand the program again. More academy campuses? More academy worlds, Zara replied. If we are going to turn every death world in the galaxy into a thriving colony, we need more graduates. As they watched the celebration below, Zara realized that they had accomplished something far greater than improving survival training. They had changed how the galaxy thought about impossible places. Children who grew up in these new colonies would never see harsh environments as barriers. They would see them as homes, and when they grew up, they would push even further into the unknown, building communities in places that current technology could not even reach. The galaxy was about to become a much larger and more interesting place. Director Veltar's scales shifted to deep blue, indicating profound satisfaction. Dr. Chen, I believe you have answered your original question completely. How so? You asked why Earth kept sending graduates to Deathworlds. Now the answer is obvious. Zara looked at him curiously. Because, Veltar said, someone had to teach the rest of us that there is no such thing as a world where people do not belong. There are only worlds where people have not learned to belong yet. As the celebration continued into the night, Zara smiled and made a note to update the Academy's mission statement. The old goal had been to train specialists for dangerous assignments. The new goal was much more ambitious. They were going to teach the galaxy that everywhere was home to someone brave enough to make it so.